Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome to Awakening. This is a space where we're having conversations that really open up something within us. And today's conversation is one I've been really looking forward to because it's going to invite all of us to step beyond what we think we know about reality and consciousness and our place in the universe and kind of open up portals and ways of being and feeling and experiencing it. And my guest today is Neil Gaur, and Neil spent a lot of time and energy and space in deep consciousness, learning through ancient wisdom and modern science and deep inquiry into the nature of reality itself. So this isn't just a conversation with beliefs and theories. This is going to be, I invite you to feel into the truth. And as you listen, I invite you to soften so that you're not trying to understand with the mind, but rather that you can experience it and notice how it stretches you open and just trust that whatever lands is exactly what you're ready to receive. So Neil, welcome. And Neil is the founder of the Portal to Ascension, and also Neil has the new Living Expo, which has been around for 23 years, really helping people to connect with consciousness. And I'm going to be one of the speakers at this beautiful expo in April, and we can talk more about it later in the podcast. So welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Natalie. It's an absolute honor to be here with you.
So I would love to dive in to find out a bit about you first, because I'm sure many of the audience would love to know about your journey and maybe share some about your spiritual awakening as well.
Sure. Well, I would say that just like a lot of us, there were some questions as a child that looking back in retrospect, I realized that there was just this knowingness, or even more than a knowingness, there was like the world could be different than it is, that there is a potential for us to live in a different way. That was kind of the energy and frequency I had as a child when I was like 5, 6 years old, super into the stars. And I know a lot of people want to be astronomers, astronauts when they're kids, but I was really into just space. My name Neil, I was named after Neil Armstrong because my parents were really into the moon landing and space in general, which I think was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But as a kid, I was raised in England. I was born into a Hindu family, so I pretty much did all the rites and rituals. And what I've noticed is a lot of Indian kids, first generation out of India, first generation kids, there's not the worship level and the commitment to God or gods isn't as much as our parents and our grandparents. Whereas there was a lot of blind faith in Hinduism. A lot of these people, my parents left India when they're in their 50s, and the ritual was just a huge part of life. My dad, even though he's was considered himself religious and Hindu, he believes in, pretty much a lot of different religions have truth. And my mom was really just like always taking us to temple, sending me to Sunday school. And for the Indian, Sunday school isn't like is something um, where you learn about the Bhagavad Gita and different ancient texts. So that was kind of my childhood. But if I look back at it, I don't really ever think I ever thought of God in that whole thing. It was more community oriented. Going to Sunday school was all about community and my friends. Going to temple was about hanging out with friends. And I knew all the words, even I knew all the songs. Even as a kid, I would be singing what they call bhajans. That's what they call it in Hinduism. It's called a bhajan when you're singing like a chant. I was like the little like 11-year-old kid knowing all these songs, and I would just sing. It was like a parlor trick, everybody was like, "Oh my God, how cute!" But I never ever had the soul of God. I was just doing it because that was what I was trained to do. So as I'm growing up, being raised in England, I celebrated Christmas every year. And Christmas was a huge part of my life. Many gifts, many presents, whole family was there. Celebration was off the charts. And I never once questioned why, as an Indian Hindu, I'm celebrating Christmas because I was raised in it. It was my culture. I would watch King of Kings every year. I'd watch Ben Hur every year. I'd watch Moses movies every year. And then when I was 12 years old, my dad got a job transfer. We moved to California. So now I'm in high school. I start high school in California, in Orange County. And now I start thinking by myself and start having thoughts like, wow, it's so interesting that our religion is open to all these other religions, but the main religions on the planet, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, but namely Christianity, because that was still a huge part of my upbringing in England, says that there are no other ways besides their way. But why is it okay for me to believe that Jesus existed, celebrate Christmas, if the religion of Christmas is literally saying that our religion is invalid and even goes further because we have multiple gods, which is a whole other podcast on its own because technically there's only one, um, that we're devil worshippers. The fundamentalists think that, right? So those are my thoughts, like 16, 17, 18 years old. And so when I graduated high school and I went to Cal State in Southern California, I started wondering because I saw a similarity between Krishna and Jesus. There's too many things in their stories that are the exact same. And it's not a coincidence that they both have Christ in the name. Krishna, Christ. There's no coincidence. It's the same root term, just like Christos in Greece. And that was my first like aha moment. And I was like, wait a second, how could they have these similar stories? And then I was like, oh my God, maybe Christianity and Jesus never existed, but it's a retelling of an older story from India. I've come full circle now. I believe Yeshua existed, but that was the first thing, like that maybe all of this is incorrect and it comes from an older story. So let me go ahead and start looking for the root of all stories. And that's what started Portal to Ascension. That's what started everything. 2001, 17 years old, I was looking for the root of all religion. And the story continues from there. I eventually found the Sumerian scriptures, and the Sumerian scriptures was my entryway into the cosmos, quantum physics, ancient history, all that I started to end up doing for, Portal's Ascension.
Oh, wow, I'm fascinated. Can we go deeper into this? Can you share some of your findings of the root and the Sumerian scriptures?
Yes, yes. Okay, so now I'm 18 years old now, and I would go to Panera Bread with my friend when we're in between classes and stuff, and I would have the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Old Testament. I was looking for the root of everything, seeing similarities. And then as I was looking further and further back, I found a website online that was a translation of the Sumerian scriptures. And back then there weren't archives, there weren't searchable things. There was one website with text that wasn't formatted, like tens of thousands of words, no formatting, right? All the Sumerian scriptures. And I found also another individual called Jordan Maxwell online who I ended up working with later. And there was all this text in there that was pretty much verbatim verbiage from the Old Testament. So now this is very interesting because the three major religions in the world all share the same source book, the Old Testament. So now I found the source text for the three major religions in the world. And I started reading through it, and it starts saying things like a flood. The first thing, my first finding was it said that there was a great flood that happened on planet Earth. And I'm like, wait a second, this story sounds too familiar. This sounds like Noah's flood. And so obviously it was the same story. So that broadened my perspective into flood stories. And I realized almost every ancient civilization on Earth, every ancient religion, every ancient text that goes beyond 5,000 years ago, all have a flood story. And almost all of them, many of them have markers in there so you can date it because they speak about different geographic shifts on Earth, including ice age shifts, melting of a glacier, mountain ranges. They speak about all these things. So you could actually date based on that information. And guess what? They all come back to the same time, 12,900 years ago, around 11,000 something BCE, the end of the last ice age, of course, when the Younger Dryas impact happened, where there was either a solar flare or a meteorite or both, hit the planet, and there was a flash flood that occurred because the ice caps melted. But so that was like another aha moment. But then I started looking deeper because this story was called the Epic of Gilgamesh. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's about Gilgamesh is a giant hybrid human being that's hybridized with the DNA from a god human hybrid, right? And he is going, this is how the story begins. He's traveling around the planet looking for um, he's traveling around the planet and then he finds the remnants of family that is the last survivors of a great flood. That's how it starts, right? And the survivor's name is Upnapishtim. Upnapishtim translated in later into Noah. So, okay, here's the Noah story. His real name's Upnapishtim. Noah was changed later, but the crazy part is I thought Noah was supposed to be the only being left on the planet. There's another advanced civilization that's a different hominid that isn't Homo sapiens sapien coexisting on Earth that ran into Noah after his civilization was wiped out. So the Noah story is one fragment. The Sumerian story is the whole planet's perspective on the Noah story. Other civilizations and other beings that were hybridized from the gods were actually on the planet and survived the flood. Some of them didn't even get impacted by them because of their technology. So Upnapishtim is telling him the story of what happened, what went down after the flood, and the story continues. Now, so that was like, wow, the Noah story actually might be talking about just one civilization or one hominid, but if you look deeper into who Gilgamesh was, the gods weren't gods. Gods was a term that was then adopted thousands of years later. The actual hybridization story speaks about beings from the stars hybridizing with humans on the planet, sons of God mating with the daughters of men. That's a Bible reference, thereby creating a hybrid being that became the Nephilim, right? That was walking the planet, and those were the giants in those days. That was all the information I was finding from the Sumerian tablets, but instead of God, it said star beings. So I started wondering, could it be that all these ancient stories of gods, especially the Mahabharata, Krishna, blue beings, were battles in the sky with chariots throwing lightning bolts? Could these be different depictions of people seeing celestial beings that had such advanced technology that they consider them gods, right? And so this is when I was 19 years old, and you can tell which route that I decided to go down after that.
I, the whole time you're speaking, I've got goosebumps, like energy, waves of energy moving through my body. When this happens, it's because you're speaking such deep truth. Yeah. So so if you can continue to share with us because I'm fascinated. So
Yeah.
then as you started to uncover more and more, what are your findings?
Yeah. So as I was looking for the root of all religion, right? So in that moment, I found that, and I felt I found the original text. So now I'll jump over the all over the place now to explain findings that I found later that connected some dots. The Sumerian scriptures have been known and are still known academically and through the mainstream archaeology as the oldest religious scriptures on the planet, right? There's seven tablets of creation. Each tablet represents a day of the week, right? So that's where we get the days of the week. Because the gods from the Bible, the seventh day God rested, comes from the Sumerian scriptures, and the Sumerian scriptures have seven tablets speaking about the creation of humanity, right? And in this text, it talks about there being another planet that has an elliptical orbit around the sun, and that's where they come from. Now, some people say this planet still exists. People know it as Nibiru. Some people say it's been destroyed. Some people say it's actually a binary star system, our star system, and that star is I think it's called a red dwarf, meaning that you can't see it from a distance because it's really hot, but it looks dark, but it has another planet rotating around it. So people have all types of theories. But then I started, as my journey continued, I started realizing that mainstream is misdirecting us to think the Sumerians are the oldest text. The reason why is because Egypt is older. They want you to believe that Egypt isn't as old as it is. Because one thing they don't tell you, right? Because, we think the arrogance of thinking we're so advanced, right? The arrogance of thinking that we're the most advanced it's ever been, it hinders growth. And partly is because we have advanced science and all this stuff. If a scientist comes out and says to you, "Oh yeah, we found this structure. It's this old." Most of the people in the world do not know you cannot carbon date something unless it's organic material. Most of the people don't know that. So this is what happens at a lot of these sites. Um, One, they just give you a date based on trying to piece together pieces of hieroglyphs and things like that. Or two, they find the last piece of organic material in this place, they carbon date it, and then they say it must be this old. But what if you had a house that was 200 years old, and 50 years ago you were in the house and you dropped a piece of paper? A couple hundred years in the future, somebody goes and finds your piece of paper, and they're like, "Oh, this house was made when that paper was dropped," right? That's the kind of stuff that we're getting. So, and with the Egyptians, not the original Egyptians, because I believe Egypt was maybe not hijacked, but it was abandoned and then taken over by another group of people. They plastered their names on everything, right? Including things that wasn't theirs, right? They redid the face of the Sphinx, but if you look deep enough, things are being rebuilt. So right now we have dynastic Egypt going back to around 3000 BCE, and then we have pre-dynastic Egypt going to like 6000 BCE. But if you look at the evidence, including some of the hieroglyphs, there's some evidence there that goes back, coincidentally enough, 12,900 years ago. And there's even an area at Luxor's temple, the only place in Egypt you find this, with hieroglyphs speaking about a civilization that escaped a great flood and founded Egypt, right? It's the story of Atlantis. But then there's also structures in Egypt that some people speculate could be tens of thousands of years old, that it could have been a civilization that existed for quite a long while. So now what I've realized as well, going back to your question here, is that there's been misdirections in us looking at Sumer as the cradle of civilization, because what was the capital of Sumer was Babylon, right? And they talk about the rise and fall of Babylon, which makes it that we had advancements only around 3000, 4000 BCE. And if you look at things like that through Sumer, you're like, oh, that's when the Sumerians are the ones that created written language for the first time. We didn't have written language before that. Before Sumer, we were ignorant. We were what's it called, hunter gatherers, and that's the narrative that they keep. But when you find places like not only in the Mayan areas that look like they're older than that date that we've been given, when you find them in Egypt, when you find it in Peru, Peru is the biggest. I would say Peru is the biggest smoking gun for an ancient civilization and the existence of star beings than any place on planet Earth, right? When you start looking at the information you're getting out of there, you start realizing that, oh, maybe the narrative of, oh, we didn't even know how to write until 3000, 4000 BCE. We weren't communicating in that way. We didn't have any communities. We were all hunter gatherers roaming the planet. That narrative starts to crumble.
I can feel it. And I mean, I've been to Peru and I've walked the Inca Trail and I something happened, something transformed in me when I arrived and like through the gates into the beautiful ancient sites. And I just felt like we are so much deeper, wiser. We're ancient beings.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we kind of believe that, oh, we're advancing now in this new technology. But what you're saying is that there's been technology on this earth way more advanced than what we're currently accessing and opening up to right now.
Yeah. So there's a few points here. Let's just speak about one of the smoking guns in Peru, right? There's a place called Paracas, Peru. Paracas. So for a long time, here's another piece of information that's only come out in the last few years. So the history books haven't even caught up with this yet. You probably know the whole story of the Alaska land bridge, how at the end of the last ice age, which was around 12,000 years ago, there was a land bridge that appeared from Russia to Alaska, and the Asian people from Asia went over the land bridge and they became the Native Americans that we currently have in the US or had in the US as well, right? So that's the story. That's what's in the history books. That's what's accepted. So that is true. There was a land bridge, and people did come over during that time and come into this area here. So for a good 100 plus years, it's been thought of that this whole entire continent was completely barren except for animals and maybe some dinosaurs until the Alaskan land bridge. So they did some DNA studies in Paracas, Peru. In Paracas is where you find the elongated skull people, right? And you might have heard of the elongated skulls. So there's two narratives here with the elongated skulls. Most people in the world, especially in the mainstream academics, the government of Peru, they you go to the museums there and they'll show you something called cranial deformation. And cranial deformation is when you're a baby, an Incan baby or maybe another tribe, they would put two planks on the head. They would put like the pulley system here, and then they would slowly crack your skull, right, when you're a baby, over the years, in order to elongate your skull. And they have I've been to the museums where they show the skulls, and there's like an actual fracture in the skull that you live with that fracture for almost your whole life because they crack it when you're young, and they elongate the skull. So that's the cranial deformation that does exist. But what they don't want you to know, and fortunate for them, not for us, but fortunate for them, is that that happened so they could pretend all cranial deformation is that. But it's not, because there's also naturally elongated skulls. And the naturally elongated skulls, you can find them in the museum at Paracas. You can find them in the bottom at the catacombs of one of the cathedrals in Lima, Peru. They are don't have any crack in the head. They're elongated like you would see like ancient Egyptian skulls that you might have seen. And the reason why we know they're not a human doing cranial deformation is because they have two suture marks. One suture mark here, one suture mark here. Humans, Homo sapiens sapien, we only have one suture mark, and it has two holes, like drill holes almost in the back of the skull. Why? Because the veins would go around the back to provide blood to the back of the skull. Genetic deformation. This is a genetic anomaly. This is not a Homo sapiens sapien. So they did not allow DNA studies at all for decades on this stuff. But then Brian Forrester finally got the approval to do a DNA study about 6 years ago. Lo and behold, these beings do not have the genetics of Homo sapiens sapien. And the interesting thing is, they were alive around 6,000 years ago at the same time as us, meaning that there was another hominid intelligent species existing in Peru at the same time. But if not enough, it seemed that these people were the royalty of the Inca. The Inca were the common people, the Paracas were the royalty, and their genetics were directly tied to Mesopotamia, to ancient Sumer, which which shows that they could have been the ancestors of the Nephilim tens of thousands of years after the Nephilim existed, right? So that changes the narrative, but another part that changed the narrative is there's they found evidence that they took a boat from Mesopotamia and landed at the shore of Paracas and inhabited there. And now we have the story of the Alaskan land bridge and all the natives coming through the north, all the way south, becoming all the civilizations. But now we have an anomaly. We have thousands of years before another species coming from the ocean, from Mesopotamia, before them, inhabiting south of Peru. Those beings went north and they started interacting and mingling with the Hopi tribes, the Mayan tribes, creating hybrid races that have genetic connection to them. So that's the story of Peru. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. Wow, my mind is just expanding.
Yeah,
And and so the wisdom is held. It's in the earth, it's in the skull, it's in America. It's right
yeah,
there.
it is. And so the thing is with Peru is such a deeply Catholic country that they just don't allow for people to do these studies. And I don't know if they're just like scared of the results or if they know the results, you know. Same in Egypt. If it wasn't for religion in Egypt and Peru, oh my God, we would just find out so much information.
Yeah, it's interesting how because I've been to Egypt as well, and I found like the difference in the frequencies. You know, when you go to the pyramids, there's a deep hum of like
Yeah.
creation, but when you're out and about in Egypt, it's so different. It's a bit chaotic, and it does feel like it's hidden from us, and maybe we're not ready for it, but I feel like now's the
We are
time.
ready now. Yeah, it's going
Yeah.
to happen. It's going to happen with it. Yeah, we definitely weren't ready because we went through forgetfulness. As you know, we went through a deep forgetting, and now we're going through a deep remembering. And the forgetting is as valid as the remembering because the forgetting allows us to get the depth of the contrast to remember in the contrast and the polarity of remembrance. Without that depth of forgetfulness, we can't achieve the polar opposite, right? So I want to get to your other point now. You talked about technology before, and Egypt is a great example. Egypt, and then Malta, the caves of Malta, County Meath, Ireland, all places where they have just like such advanced technology, you can't help but scratch your head and wonder what is going on here. And I used to think, you know, when I first started this, I used to think that the ancients were way more technologically advanced. And then I started realizing over the years, like over like 10 to 15 years, that we're looking at technology from our own view, that we feel that this type of technology, computer, phone, all this stuff is an advancement in technology. But what they really had was an advancement in consciousness. So technology and consciousness advancement don't have to go hand in hand. There's probably was civilizations that had starships, interacted with different beings in different ways, but in regards to having this type of technology to do the things that we do, if you have a levitated, an elevated level of consciousness, I would personally feel that one, you don't feel the need to have all this external stimulation as we need now that we get through technology, right? And two, so many things that we could do through technology, through phones, everything you can do through your own consciousness, through telepathy. So when people look at the past and like, whoa, how did they create this? Where are the tools? I think they're looking at technology from the wrong lens. And Graham Hancock came out with a series. He's on two parts on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse, and he's made a really great point there about this technology thing, about why people can't witness and observe the technology and where are the remnants of the tools. So right now we exist in explosion technology. Everything we do creates an explosion to create everything. Your car, well, the only way it keeps going is because it's little controlled explosions inside. War, explosions, right? Computer, fire, electricity, explosion. Building a wall, breaking a bridge down, we explode stuff. Everything is, which is so symbolic because I'm taking it metaphysically. What is explosion? It's external. It's all external output, right? So the ancients not only were meditative in the singularity, but they used implosion technology. Implosion technology is singularities, wormholes, black holes, zero point, consciousness. And when you use implosion technology, it's zero waste, it doesn't destroy the environment, and it could be type of technology that you can't even observe. And if you're at the level of consciousness doing it, you might only need your own consciousness to be able to do it rather than an actual tool. And a good example would be the Pumu Punku blocks in Bolivia and also the walls in Peru, where it quite literally looks like they melted the stone and they pieced this jigsaw puzzle together, and in a way that nobody could have actually chiseled those pieces out because there are no straight edges. It just looks like a marshmallow blocks put together. And the only thing anybody could ever think of, even engineers, is somehow they liquidated the blocks, put them together, and solidified them again, right? I feel we exist in some sort of simulated reality. This is a computer program, and we're the coders. And and some people in our ancient past figured that out, and they figured out how to code the simulation themselves. And if you can code the simulation yourself, you can rewrite the code. You can rewrite the way things operate, the way buildings are structured, and all of that.
Oh, I totally feel this because I had this experience where I was meditating. I went to a Vipassana, a 10-day silent retreat, and you're meditating, like sitting meditating for about 10.5 hours every day, but you're meditating the whole time. You're not talking or any communication. And on day 8, something happened to me where first I could feel my body turn into vibration and my mind by this point finally it was just quietening down and so the mind was becoming subtler and subtler, the body was becoming subtler and subtler, and and I'd done this type of meditation before, but I'd gotten attached to the good sensations, so I
Hmm.
didn't pass through this level. But this time I was determined, and it was painful. My body was aching, and I was just like, just sit and be. And I passed through layer after layer until I got to this point where there was nothing, no mind. I couldn't feel my body. There wasn't a body, but there was awareness. So there was awareness that was aware of emptiness, just spaciousness, which is what we could call source or God or whatever we call it, the infinite. And it was absolute like peace. It was stillness. It was 0 point. There was nothing going on. There was no creation. And then I was there for a while. I don't know how long. And then the question started to come in about love. I asked my mind started to come back, and the first question it asked, it said, "Well, if this is source and God, and everyone says that God is love, but I'm not feeling that. I'm just feeling emptiness, spaciousness, stillness, peace. Then, then what's going on?" And then what happened is I started to feel movement, and I could feel vibration again, and love. So what I understand is that in source, in stillness, back in oneness, there's nothing there. There's no separation to experience itself. So you have to create a separate, you have to create the mind in order to have experience. So we've created the mind, and the mind creates everything as far out as we can imagine, as far out as we can create. But somehow we've kind of like brought our mind into this finite, attached to the physical, and we've forgotten and we've lost the magnificence of the creator that we are, and how we can be love and experience that vibration. Love is the highest frequency that I've experienced, and we can embody it and we can create from that space. So I love how we can use technology as it's consciousness. It's not things that we need to go and dig and find, but it's already here in the present moment. It's right here, right now. Like, how can we crack open even more and remember deeper so that we can connect to the true technology?
Yeah. It's like when as you're saying this, something came to my mind. It's almost like the whole thing with consciousness and technology and getting your conscious to a level to achieve certain things. Like, for example, say that you want to levitate so you can show everybody that it's possible, right? But you're just starting at zero and you need to get to 100. And that whole journey is you meditating, you connecting to consciousness, you finding love, you getting peace, you healing trauma. By the time you get to the state of 100 and you can levitate, you no longer have the desire to show anybody. You know, because the only way you're going to ever get to that level is to get rid of the need to actually do it. And I think that's what happened with the tech too. Like, we don't need all of these things. If you feel a sense of inner peace and a sense of connection, how much of our world is being created in order to spike out dopamine, right?
Absolutely.
The need for this, the need for that. What, like, even communication. If you felt connected all the time and you could communicate with anybody through your own consciousness, right?
Exactly.
What would you do?
Yeah, and the two biggest things are we've got a fear of the unknown. So we want to
Yes.
fill the space, and we we fear being alone. And and I feel like actually both of these fears are drivers that help us to become more conscious.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, 100%. That's the and that's what's going on right now. Like, we're in the biggest fear of the unknown ever. An analogy that I like to say is that we can't take our baggage to the next dimension. And because I like to put it into scientific terms, I say, imagine you have a black hole with a singularity, a wormhole. And a few thousand years ago, you were right here at the edge of the black hole, and it took you lifetimes to go around, right? Lifetime after lifetime. But then you got sucked closer and closer. And through that wormhole is the fifth dimension. And as you come closer to that wormhole, now you're spinning at rapid speed. Things that took you multiple lifetimes to experience, you're experiencing three times in a day. Why? Because you're constantly having the ability to release that attachment or that lesson, or learn that lesson, or release that trauma connected to that. And when you go through the wormhole, you need to release all of that baggage. And part of that baggage is how fast we're spinning around it to go to that new reality, new dimension. And I feel like even though that's kind of a metaphor, it's almost literal because if we're going into a fifth dimensional state, we're quite literally going through a wormhole. But the wormhole, people have to realize, is inside of us. We're made out of infinite we're made out of infinite subatomic particles. Okay? Like, what is a subatomic particle? It's a singularity. It connects you. It's literally mini wormholes. Singularities, subatomic particles are trillions of wormholes that make up our body. Those wormholes are reflecting light in and out of the wormhole at such a high speed, just like a hologram, that is then coming up as a perception in our reality as an atom, and that atom now creates the building blocks for the code. So like the wormhole, the singularity is the ones and zeros in a computer program, right? And then the ones and zeros being put together creates the solid being in the program walking around, you know? And the only way to get to another level outside of you, a beautiful world, a fifth dimensional paradise, is by connecting to your inner singularity, the inner zero point, and going within. And I feel like when you go within those singularities, that singularity connects you to all parallel versions of yourself, all dimensional versions, all past life versions, everything. And so that's why, like, why is it somebody who has cancer is vibrating in and out of reality every millisecond, but every day you can check and they still have cancer? Because the code within the singularity is reflecting back the same frequency. You know what I mean? Whether you're pulling it from a past life, all that. So this is a working theory, but this is what I feel is going on right now.
I am in resonance
Hmm.
because, okay, so I'm saying it in this different words, but it's the same. Um, I feel like that which we create in that which we experience in our outer world is magnetized in based on our patterns that we are vibrating within. So if like a thread of light, a thread of a different color thread, if we've got a certain thread, then it's sending out information, light, and that is then being reflected as an appearance in our outer world. So that's
Exactly.
why even though we die and we're born every single split second, I mean even quicker than that, it's so fast. We're constantly death and rebirth at the subatomic level. So even though that's happening, we continue. We keep continuing with the same
Yeah,
pattern. And so we now here in humanity have this huge opportunity to like really wake up, really remember and
sure.
stop the patterns. Like really recognize that we've been believing our own minds the whole time. And we don't have to believe it anymore. Like our minds have been conditioned by our parents, our grandparents, our schools, all of like the collective mind has been like stuck and stagnant. But now we're taking our power back and we're going, wait, if this is all a dream and I'm the dreamer, I can change the dream. I can change the
Right.
narrative. I can change my frequency.
Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. And I love that analogy too, that not only are we dreaming into other realms, but we're dreaming ourselves awake here. And I also love, so I've been to Vipassana a few times, quite a few times, and it's been my favorite modality is Vipassana for sure. It's changed my life. And so when I'm sharing this, I'm sharing it also from the perspective of Buddha because to me, Buddha was a quantum physicist, in my opinion, right? Siddhartha. He even had terms for it, and as you know, because you've been there, he called it kalapas, right? Kalapas translate in our day modern day language as subatomic particles. And what you were doing is you're letting go of the Sangharas, right? And the Sangharas are impurities that live within the Kalapas. Now translate into modern day English. Impurities that live within the subatomic particles. And how do you get to that? You feel sensation, you don't react to sensation, and you do it in a focused way so you're not scattering your consciousness, and then you allow the sensations to come out of the subatomic particles and clear out your karma or whatever. But the interesting thing was what happened to Buddha afterwards. After he did that, he went through every one of his lives, his past lives. He even wrote a book on it, on his past lives, because once you clear out everything from this life, you then, through the subatomic particles, connect to all incarnations of yourself, and you do the spring cleaning for all of it, and you achieve nirvana, right? And when I was in Vipassana, I went 6 times, and I would say like exactly you, like what you said. First few times, I was like, oh my God, the sensations. After a few days, I would start remembering things in my life I forgot. And I don't have a lot of memories of my life, so I was like so ecstatic to remember all of this stuff. And I remember one time I was in Vipassana, and I was like, I had a breakdown. I was crying because of my childhood abuse that happened to me, and all this stuff was coming up. And I was about to go back to the pagoda hall and meditate. And I was like, I'm not going to meditate this time. I'm just going to sit there. I'm just too frustrated. And then when I'm there for 5 minutes, I'm like chilling out. And I'm like, all right, I might as well just do it. I know I got a long time left. So I start meditating, and I just said, okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to feel the anapana, the air in my nostril. I start doing that, and all of a sudden I see in my mind's eye myself as a little kid. And I wasn't trying to imagine it. I wasn't trying to envision it. I just saw myself and I was like, wow, this is very interesting. And I'm like, okay, let me be neutral about this. All right, and just breathe. So I saw myself as a little kid, and for the first time ever in my life, because people have always said you got to be angry for what happened to you as a child. You got to feel that pain that you never felt, and you got to feel sorry for yourself as a child, like to like be like, oh man, that sucks that happened to you, and move on from there. I heard that many times before, and I couldn't do it because I hated myself. And because I hated myself, I could never see myself as a kid and as a separate being. I would I hated myself even as a kid. So for the first time, I saw myself as a separate entity besides me, right? And I was like, wow, you're such a cute little kid. And then I was like, man, it sucks so bad what happened to you. I'm so sorry. I didn't try to say that. I wasn't imagining that. It just flowed from me. Then, in my mind's eye, I saw myself as an adult right now. Right? This is like a few years ago. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I'm breathing, breathing, breathing. I have an itch on my forehead. My eyes are watering. I'm not scratching anything. And then all of a sudden, my adult self hugged my child self. We shot off, we became a DNA spiral. We shot up into the galaxy, and I literally felt a click in my brain. And that was I didn't know what soul retrieval was back then, but I guess it was soul retrieval on some level. And from that moment onwards, even though I've gone through some challenges, I've never hated myself again. That was the shift.
This is huge. This is what self-love really is. Like, so many spiritual teachers say, well, self-love is a gateway. It really is, but not in an intellectual, like thinking, waking up in the morning and saying, I love myself, I love myself. It's actually going and being with yourself and seeing yourself through all that you've been through and witnessing it and accepting it. Acceptance is the vibration of love.
Yeah, that's powerful because that's the one thing that I sometimes miss out on too, and others as well, is that self-love isn't like being like, oh, this is look how good I've been in this situation. I'm worthy of being loved. It's like, can you even love for yourself and give yourself compassion? I think is the beginning part for parts of yourself that you don't really even appreciate. Can you love all of
Exactly.
yourself?
Yeah, even those parts of yourself when you see that you're losing it. Actually when you say losing it, you're losing consciousness and you're becoming very reactive to a trigger or you feel a lot of emotion coming out. And in that moment, hopefully you can catch yourself before you completely lose it. Um, and in that moment where you notice, oh gosh, I'm so reactive, I'm being hurtful to myself, to others, I can accept that I'm human, I'm experiencing myself as a human being, that I am a light being, that I am love, and I can just be with what is, and something shifts and expands and changes. Like
Yeah.
this feels like the way forward for humanity, but it has to start within. Like as you said these subatomic particles within, we can change the whole of the reality by going within. Could you share maybe some of the ways that you're doing it to crack the code that everyone
Mm,
here could integrate and start to use as a practice for themselves?
yeah. I would say the whole term, as cliche as it might sound, feeling is healing, is very key. Sometimes I've done meditations where I've had severe anxiety from different things, and I've just sat in it rather than try to do things to distract myself. Some of the answers are very simple, like how many times when we're nervous do we pick up our phone and go into our phone, right? What if like you're going into an elevator and somebody else comes in and you get a little anxious? Do you just go on your phone to be distracted, but you have nothing to do? Can you sit in anxiety? And even though that might sound like a microcosm element there, it carries on to all parts of your life. Can you just be present and grounded in yourself? And so some mornings I would just sit there in silence. And right lately, there's been a lot of stressors in my life, right? And especially with creating the expo, there's so many things happening and events I'm doing. And I got sick a couple times in the last week. I never get sick. I got sick twice in like a week and a half. And my body was telling me, like, you need to take care of yourself. So I'm like, all right, good wake up call. So now I'm slowing down in the morning. You know, are you jumping onto your device in the morning? Yep, I've done that many times, right? The science suggests that it actually spikes cortisol levels and it puts your heart in fight or flight, you know? So those are little elements you can do. Honestly, the best thing that's worked for me in regards to meditation is breath work, right? Breath work and chanting. I love chanting as well. So those things have assisted me. What else can I share? You know, this world right now is designed in a way in order to stimulate us constantly, right? And I've realized that the only way I'm going to actually be efficient and successful in what I'm doing is by slowing down my approach to it instead of going a million miles per hour. This year, everything picked up. 2026 started, everything was just like on fire. Let's just do. And a lot of times I just neglected to take care of myself, to go out, to have a social life, to connect, to be in community, right? Know what the things are that fuel your soul and don't neglect those things because your soul and how you feel about yourself is more important than any type of productivity you could ever have.
Absolutely. And it's you become more present when you give in the morning the way in which you wake up. So if you can slow it down and allow yourself to just be and ease into the day, you actually bring the energy of I am whatever I end up doing. So, and that's the presence. So you find yourself being in the doing and being in the thinking and being in the speaking. And what happens is you're less scattered, your energy's not going out in all directions, which causes us to have less energy in our body, which causes us to have lack of flow of ease, dis-ease or illness and imbalances. So when you give yourself permission to be here in your body, to be present, to slow it down, to pause, to come back to your breath, then you've got more energy to go into whatever it is that you do want to do with your day. And also, don't let the mind bully you because the mind, it'll say, oh, but we've got to get this done. What if it doesn't need to be done in the next 10 minutes? What if it can be done later on? Like life is still going to continue. So, and every time that we say that to our own mind, we actually stop feeding it awareness, stop feeding it energy, And those programs and patterns in the ego, in the mind, they start to dissolve just by us saying, no, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. I'm going to be, I'm going to feel, I'm going to breathe. And then I'm going to come into my heart and be conscious about what my next step is.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a key point. When your mind or something, like I just had a conversation, interviewed someone on my platform. She, woke to up to ETs and more through meditation. Like she was just into meditation, and I was saying like, what do you do when you are meditating and you have a thought, an idea, and you just stop meditating and you go to your computer to write it down? How do you keep yourself there when you have all these things coming to you and inspirational things to act upon? And we had a conversation about in those moments, and you clock in your head that you could do this later. When you choose to still sit with yourself and be present with yourself and do something that's good for you, even though your mind or some sort of level of programming in you is trying to take you away from that, you're programming yourself in an opposite way. That is the deepest program, right? There was some studies done recently, taking into more like a mainstream stuff now. One study was done that people who wanted to, I lost my train of thought for a second. A study was done about it was those two studies. One of them I forgot, the one I want to speak about, but I'll speak about this other one. It was done for children, right? And the children were all given different types of things that on the table that they would normally just want to jump and grab, like sweets, candies, cakes, and they they put the stuff on the table and they witnessed to see which children jumped and just took it and had no impulse because they said to them, wait 20 minutes and then you can take whatever you want. Some of them took it immediately, the other ones waited 20 minutes. They tracked them into the future, 20 years into the future, and then they did a study on them depression, anxiety, all these studies on them. All the children that jumped impulsively and grabbed everything were dealing with depressive issues, anxiety issues, all the stuff. Whereas all the children that decided to wait because they had some sort of level of impulse control, rather than following the impulses, but actually using their own willpower to transcend what the external world is making you want to do, were at more peace with their life.
Absolutely. Well, that's totally breaking the conditioning of the mind and activating the light, the true being, the essence of what you are to just be. And that is peaceful rather
Yeah.
than, yeah, to be controlled. It's an expansion rather than a contraction and tightness.
Right. That's the whole thing. The same thing with coding, being the coder, is like we need to become the drivers behind the seat, you know? And right now we're not. And even not all of us are. And even the world has been created, TV has been created in a certain way, computers, phones, frequency, music have all been created in a way to keep us into a certain level of theta, which is the most manipulative set of brain frequency we can be in, so with that we're able to be manipulated by all the things out there, whether it's done intentionally or not. It must be intentionally because it's all emanating it. It creates a brainwave frequency collectively that we are more likely to want to buy this thing, to be impulsive about this. That is the energy of everything that's around us. However, if we break free from that frequency, then you become the masters and no one can penetrate your mind, right? But it takes that willpower. You need to break free. And the world can be surrounded with that frequency, and you can still break free from that frequency and not be susceptible to it again.
Absolutely. I know it through my own experience, and I'm seeing it happen for so many people in my community. And it's the biggest thing is determination. Just keep every time those patterns in the mind come back up and they try to control or they try to make you act from fear or scarcity or worry, you just breathe and you breathe in and you breathe out and you pause and you become more conscious and aware and you're in your power and you just, no, I'm
Hmm.
not. And you, this is it. This is how we change the reality.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we're coming towards the end of our session. Oh, I'm really loving talking to you. This is amazing. And I'm excited to meet you in person
me
at the
too.
new Living Expo. So I've got one more question and then I want you to share about the new Living Expo
Sure.
and other things that are opening up. So because right now on Earth, it feels like this is a time that's so intense and it's destabilizing. And and people it's making people feel nervous and scared, but actually it's a shift that's opening, and it's an initiation. And instead of viewing it as like a crisis, it's more like a breakthrough. What what do you feel about what's happening on Earth right now, and what are the opportunities for humanity?
Well, first of all, is that whenever there is a shift in the cycle, right? You can look at all these ancient civilizations to speak about cycles of time. A lot of them have maps and calendars. The time goes in cycles, and there's different ages within that, right? Whether it's the Golden Age, the Silver Age, Bronze Age, like India says, like the Greeks say, you can see that in India they actually have an ancient calendar with the dates, and you can witness in between every single shift. There's a 200-year transitionary phase in between every cycle, from one age to another age. Right now, we're going from the Kali Yuga to the Dwapara Yuga. We're at the end of the 200-year shift in between phases. Every age has a different theme. Kali Yuga, authority, hierarchy, delusion. The Dwapara Yuga, energy and sovereignty. That's the age we're going into. But you could track based on the dates and the calendars from the ancient times that in between every age was the biggest times of turmoil ever. And you have to realize that it doesn't even take someone being into esoterics to know that through great adversary comes great innovation and great triumph. That's what's happened in the past. Now, what's occurring right now is the collapsing of the old paradigm, because the old paradigm literally does not support the energy for sovereignty and the energy for universal peace and the energy for equality. It does not support that. It was built on a paradigm that was the opposite of that. So instead of these institutions just shifting over gradually and happily into being a whole new system, many of the things that are not haven't been supporting the new paradigm that's emerging are collapsing. Institutions, governments, even entertainment, right? We could talk about governments around the world and how if you asked most people in the world 30 years ago in the developed countries, do you trust your government? Even if they were different even if they support a different party in general, they would say yes. Now they'd say no because people are realizing, wow, even the people that we thought had our best interest in mind is not the case. Even the most developed countries in the world were corrupt to the core, but they just hid it very well. And not just on, on so many different levels, but if we talk about the UFO cover up, for example, millions of people knowing that there's been an 80-year UFO cover up, and there's been all these companies around the world that have been reverse engineering craft and making millions of dollars from it, and also people being killed over this type of technology, right? This stuff is coming out. That's on the leadership level. And now look at entertainment. Hollywood isn't the way it was any before. People are becoming seeing people on the same level as before, rather having this stardom. It's almost before you'd be like, oh my God, my favorite star. Now most people don't even want to say that they have a favorite star actor, not because they don't like them, but the hierarchy is collapsing because hierarchy was the old age. Music industry. Look at what we're finding out with things like P. Diddy and all this stuff and the inherent stuff and the corruption behind it. Look what's happened with Epstein and the realization that people are going to get the truth, but all these people were in on it, and some of the names have been leaked, but we're not going to get the details, right? People are figuring this out. This is not the end of that. This is the beginning of that great uncovering. Okay, the year of the snake is perfect for that. Shed that crap, right? And so now, as this is happening, we're basically exposing the underbelly of humanity. We're exposing the good, bad, and the ugly. All of it is coming to the surface. And that goes back to my analogy of the wormhole. We cannot go into this new reality without exposing everything and then dealing with it. How do we deal with it? How do we confront it? Yes, there'll be anger. Yes, there might be even some war over it in the beginning, right? Because that's how humanity has inherently been acting when they find something that they're not in alignment with through anger. And the ultimate place that we're going to end up is going to be that of peace. Because if you really look at it, the one thing that is just so apparent to me is that everybody in the world pretty much wants the same thing, except for maybe the rulers. They want to have family, community, food, water, And I think everybody wants to be happy. I don't know how many people you can go and ask 100 people in the street right now and ask any of them if they want to be happy or sad, right? So then why do we create war? Why do we create division? Why do we see the other? Because we're told that someone is going to take our happiness away from us. That is what it is. Why are people in the fundamental people in the Middle East, right? The fundamental, not all of them, of course, but why did they act out like that? Because some people in the Western world either did try to take things from them or have threatened or they believe they're going to be taken away the inherent right to exist, right? And I'll add one more thing to it. I watched this thing on CNN, an interview with a CIA official about 10 years ago, right? And they asked the CIA woman, she was a CIA director, and she goes, "You got to realize one thing. Nobody thinks they're the bad guy. Everyone thinks they're doing right by their people and themselves. So think about that. What's missing? Awareness, consciousness, a greater understanding of the universe, a greater understanding of how we're connected, greater understanding of our joint history, because these terrorists might think they're doing right because they're protecting their families because they have this limited perspective. These people in the US might think that they're doing right because they think these guys are going to come and commit another 9/11, just to pick on those two people in just for right now. Same with Ukraine and Russia, all of that. They all think that they're doing right by their people or themselves or that they're justified in their reason. So to me, it makes us think that we all want to do right by our people. So if we were to see that we were all the same people, it would change everything.
That's the absolute truth. And we are all the same people. Our essence is oneness. We come from one source. We come from source. We're inside that source in this movie, this
Yeah.
dream. And we are source. That is what we are. And we've just forgotten. And now we're remembering. And like for me personally, I feel it. The other day in yoga, I'd completely once again dissolved a lot of patterns and there was stillness. And next minute, I was hearing the mind of other people who were on the yoga palapa with me. Their wavelengths of minds was going through mine. I was like, I'm not me. I'm them. I'm everyone. Whoa. This is the truth. There is no separation. We are really one. And like the biggest key is we have one heart in our body. We got two hands, two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, two lips, through all our five senses, but just one heart. Like it's here reminding us, come back into the heart, come back to love and feel each other and connect with each other from this space. And then you remember that happiness is your nature, but I'm not talking about the happiness that your phone gives you if you win something or, outside things. Happiness is a frequency, a state of energy that's very high frequency, that is your true nature when you've dissolved all the fear and the worries and the stresses. When you dissolve them by just recognizing that you're not them, you naturally land back in that which you truly are, which has always been here, which is this true deep peacefulness and happiness. So it is right here. It's already here, surrounding us, within us. And so, yeah, let's keep on awakening and be the vibration that we are of the light, because the light that we vibrate is affecting others. And the stronger we shine together, the more those that are still kind of in a limited way of thinking, they will be touched by it. It's just
Yes.
destiny. It's happening.
100%.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this expansion and
Thank you as well.
depth. And I would love for you to share with everyone here a bit about what's opening up for you, what you're sharing in the world, and
Yeah.
how people can connect with you.
Yeah. So I'll speak generally first for me and what I've witnessed is going on is that there's a lot of like as I've shared, the old paradigm energy is shifting, but that's also happening across the board for events, for festivals, for conferences, for expos. And so, as you know, I've taken on the New Living Expo, which is a legacy event. It's been going on since 2001, but it has roots in 1982 from the Whole Life Expo. So it evolved out of it, which was one of the first spiritual expos, if not the first one in the world. And now, which is the year I was born, which is interestingly enough. And so now I get to take the baton into the future and create something amazing. It's in San Rafael, California, April 17th to 19th, and it's newlivingexpo.com. San Rafael is in Marin County, beautiful place that's just over the Golden Gate Bridge. And the intention for this event is as we're moving forward, like I want to make this once again the largest conscious event in the world. That's it. There is no question in my mind. Let's do it. And right in 2026 is the perfect time because I feel 2026 is a buffer year for the next 3 years. It's like work out the kinks because this is about to take off, right? And so we have 106 speakers right now. We got 8 simultaneous rooms. We got a sound healing sanctuary all day, every day, sound healing and breath work and silent meditation. And we have 125 exhibitors. And it's literally like the event of events because I love doing these events that include everything because there's going to be 1,000 different themes there. It's like every single angle that can lead to the same destination. I love that quote. There are many pathways to the same destination. I think that should be the slogan next year for there are many pathways to the same destination. You know?
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah, so we have amazing speakers, amazing people. The energy is very high for this event, and I really would love for you, everybody to join us in coming together as community and really just like moving forward and doing the work that we need to become the stewards of this new paradigm. And I feel part of that is us collecting in groups, experiencing, supporting each other. We're gonna have not only speakers, we're gonna have live music there. We have an after party, 8 o'clock. We have ecstatic dance. We have an ancient civilizations panel, an AI panel, a UFO starseeds panel, Ascension panel. So it's gonna be musical. It's like a festival meets expo.
Oh, I love it. No wonder my soul was like, Natalie, you've got to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really excited you're going to be there because like from the first interaction when Joan spoke to you and she
Yeah.
shared about you, I just felt your frequency from the first moment.
Yeah.
Like it was that tangible. And I was just waiting for this moment to connect with you as well. Your YouTube channel and you hold such integrity and such passion and joy for who and what you are, what you bring into this world. And that's exactly the type of people I want to be aligned with and do events with. So I'm really happy to connect with you and create with you.
Oh, thank you, Neil. This is so special. Oh, I feel like a lot of my beautiful community here are going to be joining. I've already had many people email saying that they're coming and they can't wait. So, yeah, it's going to be, wow, it's going to be expansive. I didn't know about the music. I love music. So, yeah, dancing. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say like this year we have the stage and music, but I've already started planning 2027. 2027, we're gonna bring actual festival DJs and bands there as well as I get the budget for it. But we're gonna really start bridging the world because one thing I've done so many events. One thing I've heard all the time is why are all the young people? And I've always
Mm.
said they're dancing at the festivals. So
It's true.
want to bridge the worlds. I want people that are into the information, people that are into the music, people into the breath work. This is going to become a one-stop shop, a hub for all types of awareness, where we can all help uplift each other.
Oh, I love it so much. Well, I'm going to include the link and information below so everyone can go and read up and then they can buy tickets and plan for the whole weekend. Come for the whole weekend. I'm going for the 4 nights. Yeah. So thank you. And
Thank you.
everyone here who's watching and just take a pause t right now and just feel the shifts and the expansion that you've just experienced and that you are experiencing from this conversation that Neil and I are having. Really feel it inside and notice what's cracking open for you. What's opening up for you right now? And then, if you'd like, you're very welcome. Neil and I would love to hear from you. You can write into the chat, into the comments, and let us know what really like cracked you open, what's opening still, and whatever you feel inspired to share with everyone in this community, because this is a very loving, warm space for you to just be held and be as you are. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Neil. Thank you
Thanks,
so much
Natalie.
for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Namaste.